Hello. So I got a request to make this video for people with anxious attachment. I was asked to make a video specifically for man and woman, but I chose to do it for both. I don't really like to separate my content, especially when it comes to these topics such as attachment styles, much by gender, because I think it's just a human problem, not a man or woman problem. So it's going to be relevant to you. And let's begin. So remember, this video, these recordings, they're not the same as hypnosis recordings. Hypnosis recordings are more focused with the specific goal of achieving something, overcoming something, working on your subconscious. But these streams of consciousness videos, they're just for me and for us to just talk and share any insights, any thoughts, whatever comes. They're less scripted in a way. So, okay, well, we all want to prove ourselves and our worth, don't we? Like, you could say it's almost natural in our nature to want to be approved of and validated by our potential partners or by our friends. After all, it's the people we spend most time with in the most intimate way. Especially people who we date, we are sharing our bodies with, we are sharing our thoughts. We spend so much time together. We spend so much intimate time together. And so, depending on your beliefs, you could say you are also sharing parts of your soul with them. So it's very deep. So yeah, of course, it's natural to want to be liked and accepted by the person who you're dating. But what if you ended up with someone out of inertia and familiarity, and not exactly out of love? Because we all have different definitions of love, and sometimes what we think of as love is not really that happy, connected, understanding, accepting kind of love. It's a different kind of love. What if it's simply a trigger, a familiarity? What if it's simply a person who has triggered an old pain inside of you, some kind of old past pattern that reminded you of your parents, and now you're desperately trying to please them and get them to like you or to not leave you? What if you're associating love with pain or fear of losing the person, or the person not really understanding you or being available? What if you're simply playing out this old past dynamic that is not good for you, was never good for you, with the only difference that now you're older and it's playing out with a romantic partner rather than a parent? How much do you actually love your partner? If you were to imagine that they would never leave you, they would give you constant attention and love unconditionally, they would always be there for you, and you would never be afraid of anything negative happening, how much would you still like them? If you were to be guaranteed that the same level or a better partner in terms of attractiveness or intelligence or interests or connection, humor, if you were to be guaranteed that a better or same partner would be available to you immediately, would you still stay with your partner? These are just some questions, some interesting questions, I think, to think about, to understand if you actually love the person and you love who they are and being with them, or this is just your attachment style making you think you love them. It's a bit different, isn't it? Because if your attachment style, your anxious attachment style subsided, your fears have subsided, and then you realize that the person wasn't really that great, then it means you probably didn't love them as much as you thought you did. It was your attachment style that loved the familiar dynamic that you have experienced already at some point in your past. It's not as pure of a love. Well, to be fair, I guess it doesn't really matter whether it's attachment style or if it's love, in a sense that whatever happens, at this point in our lives or at any point in our lives is what's supposed to happen. Because I believe we get what is necessary for us at a specific point in time. So if you resonate with what I'm saying and you have an anxious attachment style, there is reason why you're in this situation. And right now, you're giving an opportunity to understand the pattern and go through it. Instead of going away from it or doing the same thing to battle it, you can go through it. And while I'm saying this, I'm quite aware of the fact that anxiously attached people are normally not the people who would give up on the relationship. They are typically the people who would fight. So I don't want you to think that what I'm saying is fight harder for the relationship. What I mean, I guess, is if you are aware of this anxiously attached dynamic that is happening in your mind, in your heart, like in your relationship, then if you're in a secure relationship, it's time for you to work it out. So before doing what you would normally do and clinging really hard onto a person and telling yourself how much you love them and how they are the only person who you want to be with, or how it's so much better than being alone, just ask yourself, how much would you love, accept, and be attracted to this person if you had no fear or anxiety? If you had no fear of abandonment, no fear of being alone, no fear of insecurity about going your day-to-day life, no fear of boredom, just no fear of simply existing alone, and you knew you could be with anyone else you want, what would you do? Would you still be with the person? Answering this honestly will help you determine whether you are in a good relationship or not for you. Because the reality is you can find someone. You can find someone else. But if you're in a good relationship and you're happy and there is good potential, you probably don't want to leave. And so you can work this fear out in a safe environment with your partner. If you are indeed in a bad relationship, you got a chance to leave. I read a quote today that said, the way for us to grow is to learn something from old patterns that keep showing up over and over again, but to see the new possibilities in how we can react to them. Isn't that amazing? So basically, the same situation can happen that has happened to you so many times. However, this time, you can suddenly react to it completely differently. And that's a choice. That's something we can do. So for example, if when you are ignored, you used to call the person a million times until they responded, today, suddenly you could choose to calm down and not call them. You could suddenly choose to detach, meditate, hang out with a friend, or focus on yourself and doing what you want to do, and just get your mind off it and not do anything. Or if you used to cry and be afraid that a person might leave you, perhaps instead of seeing yourself as powerless and on the receiving end of the other person making a decision about the relationship, you can remind yourself that you are equal and you can also decide what you want to do about this relationship. And you can decide what you want to do about your life. Anxiously attached people often forget they have a choice. And see, all of these things are not really dramatic or impulsive. It's not about doing anything over the top. It's actually relatively quite subtle. All these changes can be so subtle that to the other person, they might not even see what's going on, because they're happening inside your subconscious. They're happening within you relatively quietly. And so it's all about these subtle changes. As they say, the voice of the fear is quite loud, and the voice of the intuition can be clouded by it. The voice of your soul, in essence, could be clouded by the voice of the fear. and be more difficult to hear. Which I can actually disagree with to a certain extent, because if you have been ignoring your soul for a long time, it might start to get very loud. It might start to scream at you to do the thing that you want to do, rather than continue to rationalize the lies that you've been telling yourself. But yeah, anyway, it is true that when your mind and your nervous system, your attachment style, get activated and you feel rattled and intense and just in a threat mode, it can be very hard for you to sense intuition of what's right or wrong for you. You are basically made to believe that you are in survival mode, which you are not. You're fine. You won't die even if something bad happens in a relationship. By bad, I don't mean dangerous. I mean rejection, breakups, things like that. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. But our job is to make our mind and body believe in it. We can know rationally that it's going to be fine, but our job is also to regulate our nervous system and to make our mind believe that it's also going to be fine. So instead of letting our minds completely dominate us and tell us what to do, how to feel, and what to believe in, regardless of the attachment styles this applies to anything, we can learn how to direct our minds. It's our job, in a sense, to direct our minds so that our minds don't direct our lives. You don't want to be controlled by your mind. Your mind is a tool that you can use to go in the direction that you want to go in, not the other way around. You are not a tool that the mind is using. Your mind is a tool that you are using. Okay. And so we segue into quite interesting topic, I think, which is souls and consciousness. I really try to live being connected to my soul. However, sometimes I drop back into my mind. But how to deal with your anxious attachment style? Let's talk about that. So it's two things. One, I think, is mental, and another one is more consciousness based. So it's more soulful. Why those two things? Because I think mental field has limits. I think it is limited to itself. I think without the consciousness, it's difficult to be in a state of peace. I think mind is programmed to look for difficulties and threats and solutions and things to fix, whereas it is a good tool, but the soul is more peace-based. And so if you're able to use the two, I think you can be very powerful. You can be very powerful in overcoming an anxious attachment style and becoming secure, and overcoming addictions like anxiety, depression. I believe the power of the mind combined with the power of the spirit is extremely, extremely powerful, and you can use it to change your life. I truly believe that. So without the understanding that there is a higher power or something to guide us, I think it's quite hard to have a holistic way to exist or to overcome anything. Mental psychological field, such as therapy, hypnotherapy, affirmations, psychology, all of these things can be useful in helping you to have a healthier mindset. And that's really good. That's really good because most of us do not exist in complete detachment from mind and in a soulful state. Most of us still have some kind of identification with the mind and the ego, and we relate and we believe in the time-space continuum. I'm not sure if that's how you call it, but we do believe in the past and the future, and we identify with it, and therefore we remember things. We remember feelings. We become afraid that a similar thing might happen in the future, or we have imaginations. So that's why working on your mindset using these different modalities and techniques is useful to most people, because most people are not enlightened. Yeah, so if we have a healthy mind, a healthy ego, a balanced ego, it can be very much in alignment with our soul. I believe you can have your mind be in connection and in alignment with your soul. And I don't necessarily think it's necessary to completely disregard your mind. It's just that if you have that foundational level, understanding of that foundational level of who you are, which is the soul and energy and pure consciousness, on top of that, you can have a healthy ego. And so the part one is mental, working on creating a healthier mind. And part two is soulful. It's not to do with the thoughts or the mind, it's to do with the quiet awareness of who you are, which is consciousness, which is energy, which is soul. And how you do that, it's a bit different. It's not about doing affirmations, it's not about saying things, thinking things, it's not about beliefs, it's not about thoughts. It's just nothing. It's existing, it's being aware, it's being present. And the way to do it, I guess it could be through mindfulness, it could be through meditation, it could be through exactly the opposite techniques than in the first step, because the first step is rewiring your mindset, rewiring your beliefs, creating a better story, believing better thoughts, thinking more helpful things. And the second step is disconnecting from all of that and just existing in the pure state and not thinking. And if a thought passes by, then not really continuing to think that thought, just being aware that it's just a stream of some kind of idea or some kind of memory, of some kind of association passing you by, and not really attaching to it. It's detaching and being free. So that's step two. First step, it's helpful to do hypnosis, hypnotherapy, therapy, psychology, self-development, affirmation, a positive mindset. And in the second step, it could be helpful to just be creative or do what you love, be in a state of flow. If you don't have that, then using meditation, mindfulness practices, breathing, observing nature, timeless things. So you see what I mean? Work on the subconscious mind and make it your ally, while also doing activities that bring you peace and joy, to disconnect you completely from your mind and make you purely present as just a piece of consciousness that you are. Just making yourself think positive sounding thoughts, I don't believe that's a solution. I think it could be helpful. It could be helpful in a sense that it could make the pain and the negativity subside, which then could make it easier for you to access the peaceful, soulful state. And that's why I believe doing step one could make it easier for you to go into step two. So that's just an idea, that's just a theory that I have. Try to practice both. I'm practicing both. I'm seeing good results. I think it's quite interesting how those two things combine. So the mental field and the pure consciousness, soulful field, I think it's good when they work together. Let me know what you believe in. Let me know what you think. If you have any thoughts, ideas, analysis about it, just let me know. I'm very, very curious. Subscribe if you want to hear more streams of consciousness recordings or more hypnosis recordings like this. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. All the best, and I will see you soon.